Welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for anything and everything sports. Sit back, enjoy, and here's your host, Troy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for USC sports. We have an exciting show for you today as we recap USC's victory against the Michigan State Spartans. On the docket for today is the game recap, my takeaways including Riley's play calling resurgence, my take on the penalties, and my solutions to solve the secondary issues, and of course, the player position grades. If you haven't already and are enjoying the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're at about 325 subscribers as we shot past our goal of 300. Special thanks to Trojan Blade for the shout out. All right, let's get it rolling. So Maiava Magic slays Sparty. What a headline, but it was true. USC was led by their star quarterback, Jayden Maiava, doing a Sam Darnold impression. And I'm going to start off with saying a very controversial take maybe for some of you, but I don't think this game was particularly close. I think we dominated them and we showed that we were by far the better team and it should have been a blowout if not for some things that we'll talk a little bit about later. Not trying to be a pumper, but the analytics greatly favored USC yesterday and we outgained them by 200 yards. Now I understand some of the mistakes continue to happen, defense, secondary, penalties, all the above, but I say it all the time. It's really hard to be elite, especially now. With the NIL and today's transfer portal, there's a lot of good teams on a daily basis or a weekly basis that are just not playing perfect. And especially considering where we were last year, the progress that I think we've made, although against lesser competition, I think it needs to be noted. Yeah, I maintain that we look like the better team and we have a lot of things to be optimistic about, but let's get into the game recap. So Jacoby Lane not starting the game was a bit of a buzzkill. Not really sure what's going on with there. Some people are rumoring that it's a shoulder injury and that he could be out for a prolonged period of time. Lincoln Riley kind of hinted at that. I'm kind of leaning that maybe Lincoln Riley was kind of trying to do a little bit of gamesmanship, and maybe Illinois is not going to anticipate Jacoby being ready for next week. But I think he's going to play. Depending on how bad it is, we might not see him next week. But I thought we did pretty good, and we started off, drove the ball down the field with ease. Fortunately, due to some penalties and some miscommunication, had to settle for a field goal, which we saw a lot in that Purdue game the week before. But you could tell Riley was really trying to establish the run early on. And this was kind of interesting because I think in the preview podcast, we mentioned that they were actually more vulnerable in the pass and actually decent against the run so far this season. Yet Lincoln Riley had none of that. And, even with some of the early no gains or, 1 or 2 yard gains, he was just going countless, rush after rush. And that's something we didn't see a lot last year. I thought the defensive line was getting pushed off the ball a little bit, which was allowing Michigan State to get into their long passing game and their play action pass. So I was glad to see that kind of got a little bit better as the game went on. Obviously, blown coverage led to a deep touchdown, most likely due to a match zone. And we can talk about the secondary right now since it's kind of a good segue. And what a match zone is, it's basically kind of getting the best of both worlds of playing zone and also playing man, right? So you have your zone and you pass off people to another zone, but you kind of play man coverage once they get to your zone. And I think with the reason that causes these blown coverages is that people aren't passing it off or just not understanding when it's their responsibility or job just to take the person coming across on a certain route. And I think you saw that with Marcellus Williams, right? He went with the deep route, and I think he probably should have passed that off to the single high safety. And if he would have just kept playing his cover 3 or whatever the zone was that he was playing, part of the field isn't open. So it's a scheme thing. I think, is it just a scheme thing and not a Jimmy's and Joe's kind of thing? I think that's probably disingenuous to say it's completely scheme related. Obviously, DeCarlos Nicholson and Marcellus Williams are not, like an elite by any means defensive back duo. DJ Harvey, which we'll talk about a little bit later, has been kind of lackluster. So I think moral of the story is Lynn's asking a lot of these DBs and safeties, and we just really haven't got it down as far as gelling together. And we need to get that figured out in a hurry. Because I know Illinois, while they had a rough week this past week against Indiana, do like to throw the deep ball a little bit, despite not being like an elite offense. Luke Altmaier does like throwing that deep ball. So we have to be prepared for that. And we can't give up blown coverage. There's just really no excuse for that. So what's the solution? And also, was it really that bad? So I'll start off, was it really that bad? 225 total passing yards on the day, and 100 of those were basically on a blown coverage and 2 on a 70-yard bomb in garbage time. Childs was only 12 of 21 on the day, and I thought we held him, in check. Actually, in the beginning of the game, we were allowing a little bit over the middle of the field, but I thought we kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So we also held Nick Marsh to 2 catches, 28 yards, something like that. So Was it really that bad? No. But what's the solution? We need to fix something. I was actually more concerned about the third down defense, once again, nearly 50%. But do we move Ramsey from nickel to safety? I know all of you want that to happen, but I just don't see it happening. I don't know who we're going to put at nickel. Is it going to be DJ Harvey? Is it going to be Marcellus Williams? And then if that happens, who do we put at outside corners? We're very thin at that position currently. So plus, I mean, Ramsey is not playing bad at nickel. And I think Christian Pierce is still playing very solid at the safety position. And I don't really think we can be attributing our defensive secondary issues really to Kamari being at nickel. Because look, Kamari goes to safety, we still have a problem at nickel, and we still have a problem at boundary corners too. So, yeah, I just don't think it's that simple. I'd be interested to see when we start seeing maybe some RJ Sermons or Treston Castro, because it really can't be much worse than it is currently, and I think we need to see if they have anything that they can contribute. So back to the recap, USC responded really well after that blown coverage, finished a drive with the Maiava keeper. He's been doing a lot better job at keeping the ball more, being very selective with it too. I mean, there was a couple times I think he probably could have kept it, but you obviously don't want to run in too much. I think 5 to 6 times a game is totally fine. Let's see, on the running, once again on this possession, they kept running the ball over and over again. Eli Sanders, Waymon Jordan, just back and forth. USC finished with 289 yards on the day, which is really good. Also helped that Michigan State was a little thin on defense. They had one of their better linebackers leave for targeting, and then obviously the injury later on in the game. I had a couple good stops with Braylon Shelby and Devin Tompkins. Braylon Shelby had 1.5 sacks on the game, which is really good. And throughout the first half, we saw the run open up the pass, which is quite the opposite of what Riley usually does with USC, which was really nice to see. And you saw Mekhi Lemon with a couple of deep passes that were really good. And Thanos started the show a little bit early on in the first half, had a couple really good run stops. I mean, his quickness off the defensive line is elite. As a true freshman, it's really, we're very blessed to have him, and he's going to be an absolute star for this defense. I don't think he's quite up to snuff to be able to play almost every snap, even like a Devin Tompkins or Anthony Lucas or of those people. Just from a fitness perspective, this high school to college transition, considering he reclassified, it's really not easy to physically hold up over the course of a game. Loved seeing, the play action pass to Tanuk Hines later on in the first half. I just think with the way we're running the ball, that play action is so dangerous. Really annoyed at the pass before the first half ended that we gave him a chance at a field goal. I think that's inexcusable. A couple of lapses, and we'll talk about the one at the end of the game too, where really there should be a single or 2 safeties up top, not allowing that over the top pass. USC opened really well, I thought, with the second half possession. Got that Walker Lyons touchdown, that little flat route off the play action is just so good, and really, really happy to see Walker Lyons thriving. Game changed. This is what we'll talk about, and we'll get into the penalties. This is a good segue, but 10 minutes left in the third. There was a horrible penalty. USC had Michigan State stopped, was for some reason trying to block the kick. I don't fully understand that. Was Tamir Robinson, I think, was pushed into the punter, which made Michigan State go for it, and then that's when the wheels started falling off. Now, I'll say, I don't think he should be rushing the punter. There's really no benefit to doing so, but it was a very bad call, and it was right in front of the referee. He can't be making that call. We get that possession, we probably go up 38-10, and the game's out of reach, and we don't have to be sweating anything. Also, a bogus pass interference under Carlos Nicholson that drive. Turned his head. Both were hand fighting. You really can't be calling that especially in a Big Ten conference game. But I mean, I say the bad penalties that the refs were calling because they were definitely looking out for it. What about these things that we keep seeing on a daily basis or a weekly basis? We see these hands to the faces. We see these substitution penalties. We see a couple false starts. These are all kind of discipline issues, and I think they need to be ironed out in some way or another. I think obviously the substitutions are on Riley. The hands to the face, it was a little bit unlucky. He slipped and he just got his hand caught in the face. It wasn't like he was, being undisciplined there, but obviously it's been 4 or 5 of those in the first 4 games, and that can't happen. And then, false starts. Killian O'Connor seems to be struggling a little bit. Obviously he's kind of the heart and soul, works his butt off, really good cerebral player, but hasn't been, grading out super well in PFFs, and he has had a couple of those snap infraction false starts from a center, which shouldn't be happening. So that needs to get fixed up. But yeah, and then I think there was a holding from Marcellus Williams over the middle, which I thought was super ticky-tack. So a lot of these things can be cleaned up. A lot of these things were unfair, but moral of the story is we have to get better. There's also obviously the fumble by DJ Jordan on the next possession. That's tough. Definitely going to be in the doghouse a little bit with that one, which gave Michigan State the ball back on short field, and they scored again. So it was a 7-point game. I know many people we've seen this happen before, but I wasn't worried. We were by far the better team on the day. just give Maiava the ball and don't turn the ball over, and we're going to score on them. They had no answer for us. Maiava had an absolute wonderful drive. Looked like Sam Darnold bounced off a couple, defenders, offensive linemen. Great third down conversion on the run. Had a good fourth down conversion as well. Just making the plays when we need him to, to make them. He's shown that over the course of his career, he has a knack for just being clutch, even if he's been sloppy throughout the game. In that UCLA game, made that crazy play. Even in Notre Dame, towards the end, was making some elite plays. So he does have a little bit of that clutch gene in him. And I mean, hopefully, we're not going to need it as much with games being close, but either way, he's exceeded all of my expectations. So we stopped them, score again, give up a garbage time score, which I'll talk a little bit about in the secondary when we get to DJ Harvey. So one of the other takeaways I wanted to get to, we already talked about penalties in secondary, is the offensive execution. I mean, Lincoln Riley is absolutely in his bag so far this year. The play calls have been, just perfect at perfect times, catching the defense off guard when they're least expecting it. There was only been 4 total punts throughout the whole season. 3 of those were in the Georgia Southern game. 1 was last game. And then 2 of the games we didn't even punt at all. Maiava has looked exceptionally poised. He's been put in really good positions with the play calling. As I mentioned, that play action pass, when he gets time, he can, he has his accuracy and arm allow him to make some of those big throws. Fantastic balance of run and pass. I've never prescribed to the 50-50. It has to be that way, but it has to make sense. It has to be in rhythm. And I think Lincoln Riley coming out, running the football early on, setting up the pass was exceptional on his part. I thought you saw, as I mentioned, the good situational play calls. That Walker Lyons flat pass has been clutch all year. We're no longer going Lake McCree on that pass. We're going more Lake McCree over the middle and Walker Lyons side to side, which I think makes sense as Walker Lyons is a tad bit more athletic. And then you saw some of those freeze option plays, which is kind of like a spread option, speed option kind of thing, where Maiava kind of goes to the weak side, has the running back, and he basically has to make the decision. Defensive lineman, is he going to tackle Maiava, or he pitches it out to whoever the running back is? That you saw a couple of those. Really good. The play action to the corner of the end zone to Nuke Hines. You saw Mekhi Lemon on the end around. Great red zone play call there. And then, even down low, like on it was second and goal from the 1. Just sneak it every time. There shouldn't be getting cute with it. He did that with Jayden Maiava, and we scored at the end. So I thought he called a flawless game plan. I mean, the only one you could probably knock him is that 4th down play, but it was like a half a yard from being perfect. A little bit unlucky, I think, on that one. So position grades. Quarterback, I'm going to give him another A. I mean, he continues to be one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, statistically and by the eye test. He's seen the field using his legs. And the biggest thing, I think, is I can trust him. As a fan, I trust my quarterback, just like I did Sam Darnold back in the day. I know he's going to give us a chance to win. And I couldn't say the same last year when I was watching him, but he has grown tremendously over this past year. So running back, I'm going to give him an A. We didn't really see a whole lot of the third and fourth string running backs, which is good. I mean, I like seeing Waymo and Eli Sanders as much as possible, but Waymo had a great game, 15 carries, like 150 something yards. Didn't get in the end zone, but Eli Sanders is offering that change of pace both from the backfield through like catching swing passes and screen passes, and also just in the run game. He's been great. We've seen a nice balance of them, keeping both of them fresh. Wide receivers, tight ends, I gave him a B+. Obviously, that fumble kind of takes the air out of your sails a little bit. But Nuke Hines sighting, I mean, he's looked great for a true freshman. I thought Jaden Richardson had a fantastic game today, stepping up, playing some actually, meaningful minutes for the first time in his career. And then, Mekhi Lemon, I don't have enough words to say how good he is. His game sense, his IQ, his ability to break tackles, his hands are elite, his yards after catch. Like, I could go on and on. He's a first-round draft pick. As long as he stays healthy, knock on wood, and we are so lucky to have him. And we did all this without Jacoby Lane, so kudos to the wide receiver room stepped up big time. Offensive line, this might be a little high, but I'm gonna give him an A-. I mean, the run game was elite, as I mentioned before. Still didn't get sacked, Jayden Maiava. So I mean, what more am I supposed to ask for them, right? We move the ball down the field consistently. Is it perfect? Is it like absolutely dominating? Maybe not, but I mean, I can't ask for much more than that. I'm gonna give him an A-. Defensive line, this one's kind of like you could go either way. I had some problems with the defensive line today, but also there were a lot of good things. I thought Thanos obviously was the big, not surprise, but he flashed today. His quickness in the run game is going to go a long way for USC this year, especially if they keep him fresh. Braylon Shelby had 1.5 sacks. Anthony Lucas continues to pressure the quarterback. I think he needs to do a little bit better job of wrapping up. I think he had a sack. I forgot when it was. if it was late in the first half, early in the second half, where he had him, let him kind of roll out and, get those sacks when you let them go, give them an opportunity to kind of make something out of nothing. Because if you get that, it turns into 2nd and 17, 3rd and 17, that changes the drive completely. So just needs to do a little bit better wrapping up. But Devin Tompkins is doing a good job. Didn't see a whole lot of Jaw Jarrett today. I don't know what was going on with that. Keyshawn Silver still hasn't popped off the page for me quite yet, but very talented group that's rushing the quarterback well. Didn't get a whole lot of sacks today. But I think the problem that I mentioned before was we were just getting kind of pushed around on the run. I know we held, I think they're starting running back to four yards per carry, which is fine. But there were just times where on some of the drives, we just had no answer for the running game. And I think we were very lucky that by us being ahead of them and in the lead, the game script just attributed to them throwing the ball more. Okay, so secondary. I know people are be like D, F. I'm going to give it a C. I don't think it's as bad as it seems. We held Aiden Childs to a respectable 12 of 21 for 200 yards. We held Nick Marsh to one of the best receivers in the whole Big Ten to 2 catches and 28 yards. It's just very situational. We're just at the times we need them to step up, they're not quite making the plays. I thought the safeties were kind of quiet today. Christian Pierce was fine. Bishop Fitzgerald, again, fine, but didn't really see him pop off the page. Kamari Ramsey, I thought actually did pretty well in the nickel position. I didn't see the PFF grades, but I thought he did fine today. Really disappointed in DJ Harvey so far. I mean, on that, obviously that long pass play, he has to be stronger than that. I know people are like, oh, he pushed off. No, you can hand fight all you want. He just got pushed over, lost his balance, and fell. Really can't be having that from a senior leader and someone we were expecting to be a starting cornerback this year. We got to figure it out, though. I think Lynn's just got to figure out scheme-wise what we need to do, make it more simple, and allow our safeties as the strength of our defense to really give help to our corners. And right now we're kind of leaving our corners on islands, and they're not good enough to be on islands. I mentioned before I want to see maybe trusting Castro and RJ Sermons get some run. I think it's time. And I mentioned before, it cannot get worse than what it is right now. Okay, so special teams, I give them a B. There wasn't really anything much to talk about today. Coaching, I'm going to give this a B too. I thought offense was A, defense C+. Lynn needs to get a little bit better with some of his coverages, but Lincoln Riley called a pretty much perfect game in my opinion. So overall, I'll give him a B. I think the score probably should have been closer to 45-17, if we're being honest, maybe even 52-17. We were moving the ball at will. We didn't even have the ball at all, basically, in the third quarter. So just a little bit of unfortunate fluke instances in the third quarter that kept this game close, but USC was by far the better team. So kudos to them. We'll give them an overall for a B. Okay, so players of the game. I'm going to give players of the games for both of the offense and defense. I know it's a little bit of a cop-out, but I thought Maiava was great. Nothing wrong with his game. And then Lemon had a fantastic game rushing for a touchdown. Had 6 to 8 catches, something like that for over 100 yards. Definitely deserving of the player of the game. And then on defense, I thought Eric Gentry actually had the best game of the season so far. Another 2 tackles for losses. Was a little bit more sound in his gaps, not making silly plays. And then Thanos, I think, needs a mention, right? 2 tackles for loss, just blowing up plays. One of the most talented players on the field, if not pound for pound, most talented. So very, very excited to see more of him. Okay, so we're going to finish it off with the Troy Talk picks to recap the past. Let me pull them up real quick. We had Tulsa at Oklahoma to start, or Oklahoma State to start. I mean, Oklahoma State, wow. I wasn't expecting them to win, Tulsa to win the game, but they won outright and made Oklahoma State look absolutely silly. We had North Texas at Army. If you watch that game, oh my gosh, North Texas was blowing them out. Army somehow comes back from 21 points down in the second half. North Texas does everything it can to give that game away, and they end up winning overtime, so we covered there. Then we had West Virginia, Kansas, which was a bummer that we couldn't cover there. Kansas scored 47 points. West Virginia was horrible on offense. Probably deserved to cover. I think there were 2 red zone possessions that didn't get points, which, probably are the difference there. And then Fresno State, Hawaii, super late game, actually finished later than USC, if you could believe it or not. We had the under. I think it was something like 2 points scored with 4 minutes left in the second half. I think it ended up around 40, 42, 43 points, which I can't believe it even got that close. But we got under 47.5 points there. So 3-2 on the week. I think we were up another positive week of 3-2. I think that makes 3 straight weeks of 3-2. That is, I believe, 14-9 on the season with about 4.21 units. So really good. I can't complain going positive every week, but one of these weeks we gotta pop off and go 5-0. But 14-9 is not bad at all. So Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below about the podcast. If you disagree or agree with anything, love to chop it up with you. As far as the preview podcast, I think we're going to try to settle on Thursday mornings for the previews and Monday mornings for the recaps, depending on my schedule. But I think that makes the most sense. So expect this podcast out Monday morning. If you want a sticker, feel free to shoot me an email at troytalk3@gmail.com. Please, continue to hit that subscribe and like button. It's helping the channel a bunch. If we get to that 500 subs, that's kind of the milestone I'm shooting for at the end of this season. We can start doing some fun things. Once again, though, thank you for making this all possible, and we will see you again next time.